Science has led humanity to discover cures, travel to space and understand the universe. But it has also sparked some of the most dangerous and terrifying experiments ever performed. Experiments where scientists played with deadly radiation. They injected unknown substances into their own bodies. Or they pushed human beings to the limit in the name of knowledge. Some ended in revolutionary discoveries. Others, in tragedies. Today you will learn about the most dangerous scientific experiments in history. And believe me, some look like something out of a horror movie. At the end of the 19th century, radioactivity was a fascinating mystery. No one really understood how dangerous it could be. And one of the most famous scientists of the time, Marie Curie, worked daily surrounded by radioactive materials. She and her husband handled radium and polonium with their bare hands. They even kept radioactive substances in their pockets, because they glowed beautifully in the dark. What they didn't know, it was that they were slowly destroying their bodies. Decades later, Marie Curie's notebooks were still so radioactive, which must be stored in special lead boxes. The constant exposure ended up seriously affecting his health. But at that time, no one imagined that invisible radiation could kill. In 1984, Australian Dr. Barry Marshall wanted to prove something that almost no one believed. He suspected that stomach ulcers were not caused by stress, but by bacteria. The problem was that no one accepted his theory. So he made an extreme decision. He drank a plate full of Helicobacter pylori bacteria. Yes, he voluntarily infected his own body. Days later he began to suffer nausea, pain, and vomiting. He had shown that bacteria could cause severe gastritis. His experiment changed modern medicine. And years later he won the Nobel Prize. But he could have easily died. During the Cold War, the CIA initiated one of the most disturbing secret projects in history. Its name was MKUltra. The goal was to discover if they could control the human mind. To achieve this, they carried out experiments with drugs such as LSD. Often without consent. Ordinary people were drugged without knowing it. Some developed extreme paranoia. Others suffered permanent psychological damage. Decades later, many documents were destroyed. And even today, the whole truth about the project is not known. In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo conducted an experiment that would demonstrate how dangerous the human mind can be. He took normal college students. He gave some the role of guards. To others, that of prisoners. Everything happened inside a fake prison built in a university. But the experiment got completely out of control. The guards began to humiliate and mistreat the prisoners. Many participants suffered real emotional crises. The experiment was to last 2 weeks. It ended up being cancelled in just 6 days. Because people started behaving in scary ways. In 1962, researchers wanted to discover how animals reacted to LSD. And they made an absurd decision. They injected a gigantic dose of LSD into an elephant named Tusko. The amount was enormous. Shortly after, the animal began acting erratically. Then he fell to the ground. And he died. The experiment caused worldwide outrage. And it became one of the cruelest examples of irresponsible animal experimentation. During World War II there was a secret Japanese facility known as Unit 731. There, doctors and soldiers performed extremely brutal human experiments. Prisoners were used for biological tests. Some were infected with deadly diseases. Others were subjected to extreme freezing to study hypothermia. Thousands of people died. And for many years, much of this information remained hidden. It is considered one of the darkest chapters in scientific and military history. Some scientists have risked their lives in incredible ways. One of them decided to get immunized against snake venoms, injecting small amounts for years. The idea was to develop resistance. And surprisingly, he survived multiple bites. But each experiment could have been the last. His body was constantly on the verge of collapse. In 1986 the Chernobyl nuclear disaster occurred. And although technically it was not a planned experiment. Yes, it was a consequence of dangerous tests inside a nuclear reactor. The explosion released enormous amounts of radiation. Many workers entered the site without understanding the level of exposure. Some died weeks later. Others were left with permanent damage. The nearby city was abandoned. And to this day, some areas remain dangerous for humans. There is an extremely famous story on the internet called the Russian Dream Experiment. He says that scientists kept several subjects awake for weeks using stimulant gas. According to the story, the participants began to lose their sanity. But here comes the interesting thing. There is no real evidence that it happened. It's a creepypasta. A fictional story that went viral because it seemed incredibly possible. And that shows something disturbing. The history of real science has already been so extreme that many people easily believe scientific horror stories. For centuries, electricity fascinated scientists. Some began experimenting directly with human bodies. One of the most famous was Giovanni Aldini. He used electricity on recently deceased corpses. And in front of the public, the bodies seemed to move. The eyes opened. The muscles contracted. Many people thought he was reviving the dead. These experiments inspired stories like Frankenstein. Science can be an incredible tool. Thanks to it we have vaccines, electricity, internet, and space exploration. But history shows something important. When curiosity advances without ethical limits, the consequences can be terrifying. Many of these experiments changed the world. Others left indelible scars. And some remind us that knowledge, it also has a price. Which of these experiments did you find most impressive? Do you know another strange or terrifying case in scientific history? Write it in the comments. And if you like videos about mysteries, science, and disturbing real facts, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because there are still many stories that science cannot fully explain.